This is the Men Refined podcast.
Hey friends, welcome to the Men Refined podcast. This is episode number 8, and today I have my brother, my friend, John Burke. John, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks, Raphael. It's great to be here, man.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. It's a beautiful Tuesday. It is all good. Sun is shining.
That's right. We're recording on a Tuesday, the first Tuesday of the month of November. Mm-hmm. We're recording on November 1st. Today is November 1st. You will not hear this on November 1st, but this is when we're recording this podcast episode today. So, John, how about you tell us a little bit about yourself? You're an engineer. You work with the city. What else can you say about you, man? You're a father. You're a husband. Mm-hmm. You're a brother.
Mm-hmm. I am. All those things.
You're a good man.
And some of them I do well, some I don't do as well. But yes, that's exactly it. So yeah, no, John Burke, and grew up right here in Colorado for the most part, and engineer by trade. And, I would say every now and then I do have a personality, so I actually can do these little podcasts and things like that. But yeah, it's all good, man. Let me do this. I want to start off by the first time I met you. Because,
you know what?
I
didn't know what we're talking about me, man.
We're going to do this real briefly. We'll keep it. I mean, that's like a full sermon in itself. But so COVID, right? July 2020, craziness.
I don't remember that.
None of us do.
Do not remember that.
Through lots of therapy, we'll all get through it. So my wife and I, 3 kiddos, we decided, hey, you know what? It's time. It's time to change, find a new church that really we can connect in. And so we literally, like many churches, either online or, in this case, we were meeting on the lawn and started to see people out there, and it was great. It was good. But then something great happened. In the fall of 2020, the church, Calvary Area Bible, decided, hey, let's go to what we call Calvary at Home. And so Raphael got to meet up with you, grab some coffee. We started talking. And I'll never forget just the boldness of that being a man. Like, what does it mean? Right? What does it mean to be the leader of your home? Okay. And you spoke with such boldness into my life that day. I'm like, I'm not certain I like this guy, but I like that he likes me. Like, he's just bold in who he is, right? He's comfortable in his own skin.
Yeah, I can be rough in the edges, though.
But dude, you're just true to yourself, and I love that, right? It was very endearing to that conversation. I'll never forget it over there. So, but yeah, then my wife and I got connected to you guys and about, 20, 30 other people in a Vogel's house. And it's been life-changing, man. We have found community, right? And it's about that connection in the brotherhood, connection in the church, in that community. That truly is our church, is our group that we hang out. I mean, I know I got at least 15, 20 dudes on 2 o'clock in the morning. I got at least a dozen guys I'd call, and they'd be there in a heartbeat. So,
amen to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's. I think that's important, and I think that's some of the stuff that we wanna make sure that those who are listening to the podcast understand that we need community in life. Mm-hmm. We were created to be in community. We were not created to be alone, to be solo rangers. So we were created to be in community, and I think that that's one of the main takeaways that we expect for those who are listening to these episodes, any episode, is that community aspect of that journey that many will consider to be an issue because it's time consuming, and many don't just want to get in there, right? But at the end, it's just so rewarding. How many stories haven't we heard from people saying that we didn't have this, but now that we're in it, it's like oxygen. It's like we need this. It's like we're trying to fight through everything in our lives to be present, to show up. Mm-hmm. On that day, we like to say we got to show up to grow up. And I think it's a real statement sometimes because, man, that's where growth happens. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're not going to grow unless you're around the right people. And I think that's important.
Yep.
John, you and your wife adopted 3 kids.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
In the journey. And I would love to hear that process, what you went through, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I think it's important for us to know because that's not a journey. It's not for everyone, right?
Right.
I'm a stepdad. I mean, I consider myself a dad, but reality, I'm a stepdad, right? I married my wife. She already had a son, but I raised this son. I know how challenging it can be raising somebody else's child, but I think in your side of the story is different because these are your kids. You adopted them since they were little. So they're your kids.
Yep.
You don't have any interaction with their blood relatives or anything like that. So it's totally different, right? I want to go to the scriptures. I want to read a couple of verses from the book of Ephesians. This is Paul talking. And then we'll jump into this conversation, and definitely we're going to hear more from you and less from me. I want to start in verse 3 in the book of Ephesians. It says, "Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, who has blessed us in Christ with every spiritual blessing in the heavenly places, even as he chose us in him before the foundation of the world, that we should be holy and blameless before him in love. He predestined us for adoption to himself as sons through Jesus Christ, according to the purpose of his will, to the praise of his glorious grace, with which he has blessed us in the beloved. In him we have redemption through his blood, the forgiveness of our trespasses, according to the riches of his grace, which he lavished upon us in all wisdom and insight, making known to us the mystery of his will, according to his purpose, which he set forth in Christ, as a plan for the fullness of time, to unite all things in him, things in heaven and things on earth." That's the word of the Lord.
Amen.
Verse 3 speaks as to who created adoption and the actual verdict. It is created by and deemed good by the Creator, our God. Verses 4 and 5 include the words adoption and love. We are adopted into a family with brothers and sisters by a loving Father. What better declaration of the biblical perspective on adoption than it being used by God himself? Joseph was not Jesus' biological father, but he adopted him as his own. Raising another man's son was a radical and confusing concept at times. Esther was raised by a man who called her his own child when she was orphaned. Moses, Ruth. The Bible is adorned with stories about adoption to demonstrate the Christian walk, redemption, and God's purpose for his children, care for those who are afflicted. When we grasp adoption, we grasp Christianity. There are no natural born children in the kingdom of heaven, and we are called to be imitators of the gospel. I cannot think of a more clear invitation in the adoption community, as Isaiah 1:17 says, "Learn to do right, seek justice, defend the oppressed, take up the cause of the fatherless, plead the case of the widow." John, the Bible is packed with these stories, and the gospel is that of God bringing us into his home as children of God. We got separated from him because of sin, thanks to Adam and Eve, and sin came into the world, and now we can accept Jesus Christ as our mediator, so we can come to be part of that holy family again, and God can receive us. So how about you tell us a little bit about your journey? Mm-hmm. Maybe we can start with your first adoption, Hallie. How did that go? What happened there? What was that pivotal moment that decided for you and your wife to take this step of faith and open your home to now 3 children?
Yeah, no, happy to share, man. So if you don't mind, let me back up a little bit in the story. So yeah, we've adopted 3 kiddos, but there was a journey leading up to that first and final adoption as well. First thing I'll say is this: adoption is a choice, not an accident, right? We chose to adopt, just like we choose to be adopted into the heavenly realms with Jesus Christ through our Father in heaven.
Yes.
Okay? It's a choice. Mm-hmm. Backing up, my wife had health issues. We got married. And if she was here, by the way, she would be correcting everything I say tonight. So we'll just kind of put the caveat that...
That's why this is a men's podcast.
85% correct. Okay. And then if you got any questions as we're going through that, dude, please interrupt. So anyway, we, got married and we're excited about having a family. I think we were in our mid to late 20s, and it's like, all right, let's go what you do, right? So a lot of our friends were having kids, things like that. And my wife and I couldn't have kids, right? Health issues, all that kind of stuff. And so we were going through that whole in vitro fertilization stuff. And like, and again, if my wife is here, she'd be correcting everything I'm saying. But let's just say trying to get pregnant. And it wasn't working. And it got to a point where, as a Christian, it kind of felt like I'm kind of playing God in some of these things, right? It's like that whole harvesting. You kind of get to that next level of like, it didn't feel right. And so pretty quickly, after months, and again, any of the dudes listening to this whose wife has gone through this stuff, it is an absolute emotional roller coaster, right? I mean, there's all these hormones and things are out of balance. It's an absolute mess. And so being patient in that journey as a husband is critical, right? Just kind of, in some case, watching the circus, but being part of that conversation, like the goal was to have a family, right? And you stay focused on the goal.
Yeah.
And so we were at church one morning, and all of a sudden this couple that we knew, they were friends of ours, they show up and they had this baby. And we're like, I'm not the sharpest dude, but I might have noticed something over the past 9 months, right? Like, how did that happen?
Oh, that's a surprise.
Exactly. And
where did that came from?
And my wife's radar is like on a high alert for any baby. Like, oh my God, like let's go talk to this couple. And so we go start talking to them. And they're
She's like, okay, I want to know where did that came from because I want one.
Exactly.
I need one.
Where'd you get that? Okay, they're on sale. So anyway,
we're talking about babies, guys. We're talking about babies.
We come to find out they had adopted through foster care. Now, I had a good friend who was going through the private agencies or international adoptions and things like that. And we always knew that, you can get infants if it's a private agency, sometimes international, they're 2, 3, 4 years old. We didn't know that you could actually adopt an infant through foster care because, again, here in Colorado, you look at, Wednesday's Child, all these kind of programs, these kids are typically older, right? Sometimes 8, 10 years old, and we really wanted a baby. And so when we, met this couple, we were talking to them and found out, oh my gosh, they actually had a newborn. Wow. So tell us more. And so my wife was tenacious, right? She's calling every Department of Human Services in Colorado, trying to find out what agencies were good, which ones are better than others. And so we ended up with Adams County. They had a great reputation through the foster care program. And so we jumped in and we started doing some training. And so in order to adopt, we had to become certified foster parents. Okay, so that was kind of step one of that journey. And it was about a 6-month program that we had to dive into. And it was literally, I will just tell you this, if you are ever wanting to be in a situation where they want to scare you out of a program, right? This was it. Like they tell you all the most horrible things that can possibly go wrong.
So they don't make it easy.
No,
is that what you're saying?
They want to make sure that you're willing to go through the trials and tribulations.
Okay.
Right? Full disclosure.
Okay.
Okay.
Is that a full governmental office? Like, is this government,
Oh,
or
yeah.
are there any other organizations that are part of the process?
Oh, this is all the county.
All
local government,
okay,
certified through the state.
Okay. And we're talking about the state of Colorado, right?
Yep, exactly. Okay. So we go through the whole program, and literally there were days, because we do these trainings, evening programs, we would leave and one of us would be like, that's it. There's no way I can't do that, right? I cannot deal with that particular situation, be it, kids who are literally in vitro and addicted to drugs, right? Families that for whatever reason are broken, they have mental issues, whatever that case may be, or neglect, right? So kids are born, but got put into horrific situations, and they share all of this with you. And you're like, oh man, like, can I handle that as a father, as a husband, to raise a kid that may have issues, right? And so you go through the program, and at the end of it, you're like, okay, I guess we're ready. Let's see what happens. And I got to tell you a story. So we had been certified, and we're literally on a wait list for a baby, okay?
You are certified for?
Foster care.
Foster care, okay.
And we're literally on a list, and okay, this may sound weird, so forgive me, but you literally can tell the county, okay, I want a male Caucasian little boy, blue eyes, blonde hair.
Is that right?
No joke. It was the weirdest thing.
No
or you
way.
just say whatever you got.
Really?
Oh, it's because there are some people like, yeah, we really just want a girl, or we want a boy, or we want one that looks like us. Maybe they're Hispanic, or they're maybe African American, whatever, right? So you can literally say, I'm only going to wait for that one specific child. For us,
wow.
My wife had health issues, and so we said, look, we don't want to take a child that is in health needs, right? Because there were kids again who maybe cleft lip, missing limbs,
Yeah, I understand.
or other things, right?
You were already running with a lot of health issues in your family. To add one more, it's just a lot for a family. So you wanted to make sure,
that we'd be successful in that.
Yeah.
So we just said, hey, look, doesn't matter, girl, boy, white, black, yellow, polka dot, it doesn't matter. Just we want healthy. Okay. That was like our one criteria. Mm-hmm. So a few weeks go by, and literally, Raphael, and again, if Julie were here, she'd tell you this story. I woke up in the middle of the night, and I literally lean over to her, Julie, and I say, we're going to get a little boy. And then I fell asleep. And she's like, what? What are you talking about? And she let me sleep.
Now she couldn't sleep through the night because you just woke her up.
She's wide awake, right?
Of course.
Why
would you do that?
My alarm goes off.
Why would you do that?
I didn't realize that I had even woke up or said anything.
Really?
At 6 a.m., my alarm goes off.
Like one of those dreams that...
Mm-hmm. Like Joseph in Technicolor Dreamcoat, right? It's like I just had this dream, and I shared it with her.
So you speak on your dreams too?
Every now and then. Wow. So we'll have another podcast. But
yeah, definitely.
So I tell her this, and sure enough, dude, we get a call like within a day, and there's this little boy, and we go down, and we get to pick him up at the hospital. And we're like, oh my God, this is amazing. We bring this little boy home, and all of our like coworkers and family, they shower, it's like baby shower, right? Now think of this. We go from like, married couple, no kids, living in this little house. Mm-hmm. We have nothing prepared for an infant.
Right.
Like zero. Like car seat, stroller.
So you're going from 0 to 100.
Dude, we're literally driving down to the hospital, and Julie's sister is picking up a stroller at the, Target or whatever, right? We're getting baby formula, diapers and things like. We had nothing, no place for this baby to even sleep in our house. So you go from 0 to parent within like 8 hours, okay? Bring the baby home. Everybody's like, oh, this is amazing, like passing the baby around. Tragedy number 1. 13 days later, he goes back to biological mom.
Oh,
turned out that and I don't think this is necessarily super confidential here, but biological mom and biological dad were actually from two separate husband or kind of parents, right? But the mother and the father of these two kids were dating, and these two kids were their kids, and they ended up having this baby. So they were living in the same household. They said, "Oh my God, this is not okay," and that's why social services got involved.
Wow!
And so when they got the mom, and they said, "Okay, you can't live in this environment because it's not a safe place to be, but we'll put you into a mutual home so you can raise your baby," and that's what they did. So 13 days into it,
this is the state.
Yeah, well, this is the county.
Okay.
Yep, they intervene and they kind of basically pull this child, this newborn baby that you show up to like adopt a pet, right? Like we have a little rescue dog. You fall in love with these little dogs like immediately. I mean, literally, it's like within hours. This little baby was ours, man. We literally had a baby that we had a name for. We had people showering us with gifts. I took a week off of work, right? And
you already invested.
Nothing.
You already invested in this.
Dude, it was absolutely devastating. And the reason I share that is because the adoption journey is like you kind of look at the end result and you're like, oh, that's awesome. But there are trials, man. And it was tough. And I'll tell you, at the end of that time, it was probably 2, 3, 4 weeks of just mourning, right? We're like, I don't know if we can do this. Like your heart is just ripped out of your body because you loved this child and it was your child. So one thing Julie and I always agreed to is that we would never quit on the same day, right? One of us, we'd stay committed to the process, what it looked like.
That's good. That's good. Do you hear that? You will both, as a couple, as a marriage couple, do not quit in the same day. Why do you guys make that decision?
Because quite frankly, there were days when one or the other of us was completely devastated in tears. Like, I just can't do this. I can't get up, can't move on, we're done, right? And it always took the other to say, it's going to be okay, stay the course, right? Stay consistent, stay in the word, stay focused on the goal.
That's good, John.
So about, can't remember what it was, maybe 2, 3, 4, or 5 weeks later, something like that. It's Sunday afternoon. In fact, it was right after Valentine's Day in 2003. And we'd actually gone, Julie and I had gone to this church dinner thing for Valentine's. Had a great time. It was one of the first times we actually sat and laughed, right? After grieving. Yeah. Wonderful night. Had a great time. The next day, Julie's family starts calling up and says, hey, I see that there's a a newborn baby was left at this fire station in Westminster. Do you guys think you can get this?
Who do you say it started calling?
Julie's, I think it was her mom or her sister, one of them, saw it on the news.
They saw it on the news.
Yeah, so the news on like Sunday morning said, oh my gosh, been this baby that has been left at this fire station number 2 in Westminster.
Okay.
A little bit of background. In Colorado and across every state in the U.S., there's something called a safe haven law, okay? Safe haven laws, which basically allows for any newborn baby, and every state's a little bit different. Colorado, it's less than 72 hours old, can be relinquished at a fire station, police station, hospital, and no questions asked, no files charged against the biological parents, okay? Because this was a point in time in 2003 where there were babies being thrown in dumpsters and they would prosecute the mothers. I mean, typically 16, 17-year-old girls that were having these babies, and it was just bad situation. That got worse because then the biological mother was being charged with murder as a child.
Right.
Okay? So the law gets passed, I think in 2001. And so our oldest daughter now, Hallie is her name, she was the very first baby relinquished under that law in 2003 at Fire Station 2 in Colorado.
Wow. Adopted and famous.
Amazing. She's incredible. Yeah.
She is.
Yep.
She's a beautiful young lady. She's so smart.
So we literally were waiting. Like, I don't know if they're going to call us, because there's a lot of people on the list probably. Sure enough, Monday morning, I think Julie actually called them. Okay, we saw this baby. Is it available? And sure enough, she was. So we ran down that night to the hospital. I think she was a couple of days old by that point in time, and we were able to bring her home. And her name is Hallie, but is because we called her our Hallelujah baby. So Hallie for short. And she's amazing. So 19 years old now, and just an incredible story. Now she's an advocate. She goes out and actually gives interviews for safe haven laws. Got a law passed here in Colorado a couple of years ago for that kind of requires all the high schools to teach about the safe haven law during the health education in the high school classes. So that was unanimously passed by both the House and Senate, and the governor signed into law. And so it's, just incredible.
That's amazing. That is amazing. Where was God on all this?
Oh, every step of the way.
How was your faith at the beginning of this journey? Because like you say, it's like a roller coaster sometimes, your emotions, our wives and her emotions, right? But you as a man, like where's your mental stage in this process? Where's your heart? How is your heart and your mental stage in this process with your first and then second, which is Hallie?
A couple things. As a man, always wanting to have, like, your kids, you think about, okay, what are they going to look like? Are they going to have your DNA, right? I'll say this. Sometimes Julie and I are asked, hey, can you go talk to this couple? Like, they're thinking about adopting, but there's this kind of weird stigma around adopting, right? Because they may not look like you, they might not talk like you, whatever, right? They don't have your same genes, all that kind of stuff. Okay, as a guy, sometimes I think we build up too much, like, oh, it's my seed, and I'm gonna whatever that thing is, okay? And I literally had to talk, like, dude, so what is your goal? Like, is it about you, or is it about the child? And I will tell you that very clearly, with all of our kids that we've adopted, when you think about generational trajectory, okay? If some of these kids would have stayed in the environment that they were in, it is likely they would have ended up kind of just right where their biological parents were, right? Right. We've literally been able to, almost like The Matrix, one of my favorite movies. Yes. You kind of pluck these kids out of the system, okay, and you put them on a new path.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying we're altruistic because we're totally like about ourselves. Like, we just wanted a family.
Yeah.
we wanted to open up, Christmas presents on, Christmas morning and see the joy on their faces, right? It's all about that legacy and providing for and serving and giving our lives into these little kiddos. And so, throughout that whole process, it was refining my heart. It was understanding this child that has been given to us to care for. And one thing I did mention, through the adoption process in Colorado, and I think many states, these kiddos have to be placed with you for at least 6 months in your care and custody before you can adopt them. So there's this time frame where you're like, what if somebody shows up and says, oh, wait, that's my child, or comes back into the program?
How many months?
6 months. So you're basically, once you get placed, you're almost at risk for 6 months before you can legally adopt them.
Wow.
So, and again, the reason I bring that up, I want to talk about our next two adoptions, if that's okay.
Of course.
So Hallie's great. She's about, 1.5 years old, almost 2 years old. And my wife and I are like, okay, we're ready, got some space, ready to adopt the second one. And we ended up, this is where, again, Julie would help me out. We ended up getting this little boy, Alexander is his name. And that process literally took 18 months before we were able to adopt him, because his biological mom was actually in foster care when she had him at 16. And throughout the whole process, like, she'd know who dad was, no idea the situation there. But after about 6 months, they terminated her parental rights, but then she appealed.
I see.
So went to the appellate court, and it literally took 18 months before we were able to officially adopt him.
At what age was the mother started the appealing process?
She would have been probably close to 17 by that point.
Oh, wow.
I mean, you think about it, right? But she's in the care of, in essence, the government. She's under foster care.
So she is in foster care herself.
Yes.
And she's appealing to have her child brought back to her.
Right. Which all she literally has to do is, stay off drugs, get a job, have a stable environment.
Okay.
Couldn't accomplish that.
I see.
So tragic from that side. Okay. But
that's a lot to go through.
Oh my God. Yeah, absolutely.
That's a lot to go through, because there's a lot of uncertainty in the process, and the investment mentally, your heart, and probably expecting that this child could be taken from you any moment. Yeah, man, how do you cope with that?
Well, it's tough, man. So, I mean, let me back up again, because I was Alex, right? Actually, before we got Alex, we did get another placement with the little boy. And so Hallie was, again, at that point, she's probably a year and a half, probably a year old. And we got a call. We got this little boy. But it turned out that he had some possible Native American in him. And so the tribe came in and said, no, we want him.
Oh, wow.
Poof. Gone.
Okay.
So we literally had this little boy for like 2 days in our house.
Oh, wow.
So again,
wow.
We had a baby placed, and then
that's the second time.
Relinquished, adopted Hallie. The little boy pulled out of our house in a couple days. Again, mooring. Okay. Get back into it. Again, we're not quitting the same day.
Okay.
Stay in it, then we adopt Alex. And that was a process. Like I said, it was 18 months.
Yeah.
So there was definitely some trials, ups and downs.
Yeah.
The other piece of that is family. Like you asked, how do you sustain through that, right?
Right.
It's having that community, having some amazing friends at our church that shored up with us, that cried with us, that showed up, and were just present, right?
Yes.
Hey, we don't understand.
Yeah.
I'll also tell you this, again, for any dude listening, there are some people that they're so ignorant when they say things and just rip you apart, but they don't even know what they're saying. I mean, we had people say things like, "Oh my gosh, good thing that kid went back to their biological family," or these kids, are you going to have real kids someday? Like our kids aren't real because they're adopted.
I see.
And we're like,
yeah,
really? Do you really understand what you just said?
How will you call these people?
Stupid.
Think before you open your mouth. I think we all go through that. I think sometimes if I don't use my brain first, I usually get in trouble. I could be driven to say things without even thinking sometimes. So I have to check myself at the door every single time. But at the same time, I notice also that some people, they just don't know because they have not been there, and they may lack the grace and the tact, how to say things, what to say. They may mean well, but they're just digging their own hole. And I don't know. Through the years, I have learned to have a bit of grace for those who have nothing better to say and they just say crap and stupid things. Giving the benefit of the doubt first, I guess. I don't know.
No, it's true. And I think
sometimes it happens, sometimes it don't. Don't get me wrong. I don't have this figured out.
Oh, I don't.
Far from over.
Like I would say, dude, like I'm more proud of the things I don't say. The things I do, right?
Oh, definitely.
Because there are times I'm like, oh, I just want to be sarcastic or rude or whatever.
I love sarcasm.
I do too. Anyway.
I love it. My wife hates it. She's like, you're so sorry. I'm like, it's so cool.
It really is a spiritual gift.
That'll be another
podcast. No,
that should be a spiritual gift.
Like, I really like your hat.
I think somebody really messed up in the typing. That spiritual gift just was left out of there for those who were putting this thing together, talking about the Bible.
Yes, but lots of grace. I think that was the point you were making.
Going back to the grace, right?
Because I think particularly as you mature as a Christian, you have the scars of life. And you realize that people don't always do things because they're trying to be mean or put you down or lift them up, whatever. And you realize they just may be talking from ignorance right now, and I'm going to love them anyway. And it's the hardest thing to do, right? It's that old Jedi thing of like, hey, I hear what you're saying, but I know you mean this. And
I think it's better to be in that state of mind than in the other side.
Yeah.
I think it's thinking the best of people first, giving people the benefit of the doubt first. It's mind changing. It's a shift on the way you think. It's better for you, and it's better for the relationship, though.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You kind of have to bridge over what they're saying to what that intent is.
Yeah.
Right. You kind of have to ignore all the stuff that's passing below that and get to the point, which is again maintaining that relationship if that's what's important to you.
So now you have Hallie.
Got Hallie. Have Alex.
I have Alex.
2 placements that didn't stay permanent. Now I'm going to get to one of the hardest ones. So after Alex, again, he was 2 years old at this point in time. And again, my wife and I were like,
Alex was?
Oh, yeah. Alex was 2. Hallie was 4. And Julie and I were like, okay, I think we're ready to jump back in and into the adoption process and see what God has for us, right? And so, and there were some other kind of health struggles kind of going and brewing at the same time. But anyway, so we get this little girl. And because we had just kind of been through some tough, we're like, okay, let's make sure this one's right. So we ask a few questions, things like that. Well, we bring her home, and she's a cute little girl, little baby. Again, she was just a couple days old when we got her, and we ended up bringing her to home. And for my youngest 2, right, Hallie and Alex, this was their little sister, and she was in our house. And just like the other placements, particularly with Alex, we did visitation with her biological, I think in that case, her biological mom or dad, and had to go have her do visits at the county, once a week, things like that, which is part of the process. And this couple that had this little baby, they, literally, they weren't married, cocaine addictions, things like that, no stable income. They were just, again, in a really tough situation, but they wanted to keep this child.
Oh.
Now, legally, the courts always have 2 paths. One is reunification with their biological family. One is adoption. Okay. And they literally, on the docket, they always have those 2 options on the table. And typically there's a kind of a parenting program for the biological parents that they got to do kind of the minimums, right? Which is don't show up high on drugs. Right. You can't have a hot test. Otherwise,
that's just minimum.
That's a basic, right? Wow. You got to provide at least some sort of stable income,
and
have some sort of a safe environment for the child to live in. Okay. That's it. Like nothing else really matters from the court's perspective. It's pretty black and white. So we go through the process. Sure enough, hot test after hot test for the biological father. It's just a mess. Like we're thinking, okay, looks like we're gonna be able to adopt this little baby. Well, 6 months goes by, and judge hasn't really made the decision yet. Okay, well, continue. Continues another month, 7 months, 8 months, 9 months. Sure enough, Raphael, right before month 12, which they kind of have their internal deadlines. They like to have a permanent placement for these newborns within a year.
Okay.
Right, which is good for the child.
Okay. Because that provides a stability for the child, and it gives that a space for those who are trying to adopt this child to make sure that they're solid.
Great. It's a good fit. I mean, we're having visits from the county. They're inspecting our house. Like you have to maintain like this open, transparent, clean life.
Yeah. They want to make sure you're a solid option for that.
Exactly. So sure enough, right before month 12, they pull the baby and she goes back to biological parents. And we have nothing more to say.
Right up to a year.
So we literally had this little girl in our home. And importantly, Hallie and Alex had a little sister in our home for an entire year. Wow. And I will tell you, I've been through a lot of junk, but that following year was one of the darkest times in our lives. Julie and I knew what we signed up for as far as the risks associated with adopting. Hallie and Alex had no idea. You know what I mean? Like, they didn't know. They just knew my little sister was here one day.
Wow.
And in simple terms, it was a death in the family.
Wow.
Like, their little sister was no more. And I'll never forget when we were talking to him, and I literally had to tell both Hallie and Alex, you're not going anywhere. We've adopted you. No one can take you away.
So at this point, there's something bubbling in them too. There's some sort of fear of the probably unknown. If that happened to her, that most likely is going to happen to me.
Yeah.
How do you process that? Where is your head as a spiritual leader of your family? How do you help your kids, Hallie and Alex now, that they are under your care, to cope with the loss, quote unquote, their sister for a year? How do you do this?
I don't know how anybody does it. I truly don't. I mean, and anybody who's been through grief, you know what I'll say next is you don't want to feel anything. Joy, you don't want to laugh, you don't want to cry. It's like you're numb, like a part of you's been severed, right? And so we did our best in that year of grieving, of just trying to create normalcy, right? You still went to the park. We still did bike rides. We still went to the zoo, Elitch's, whatever the stuff that we did back then. We did a lot of it, fishing, hiking, whatever, just to create that space of moments of joy, moments of engaging. Throughout it all, Julie and I were very focused on telling them, God loves you. We love you. You're never going away, right? Just affirming the fact that they were always and forever going to be a part of our family. And importantly, their spiritual life, right, as they're going to, vacation Bible school and Sunday school, and they're connecting with their communities as well, is just helping them understand that piece of it. So it's the best we could do, man. I'll jump to the next, our last adoption, which is Olivia. And so she's amazing. So after that, little girl that got taken away, that next year again, was just, like I said, total just grieving. We're like, we're done. This is it. But here's the thing. My wife is such a champion. She's like, and I'll say this, damn it, we're not going to end on a bad note. We're going to jump back in and we will be successful at adopting a third. We always want to have three. And so call back up the county, talk to contacts.
So this happens this year. What year is this?
This would have been, I think, 2007 and 2008, that time frame.
Okay. So next year, through your grieving process, trying to figure out where to land, how to center yourself again, to put it that way. When do you guys decide to start back looking for that third child? 6 months from then, a year after that? What was that time? What was that time frame for you?
Yeah, it was about that 6 to 12 month time frame. Because
so you could say that it took about a year for you guys to grieve, to heal, to understand, right?
Yep, process it all. Yeah.
Okay.
And it wasn't perfect, right? But I think we finally reached that point, okay, you could actually laugh again. You could actually enjoy life a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And so that was when Julie was like, we're going to do this.
Okay.
And so call back to the county. I'm pretty sure they're like, are you guys crazy?
Right.
Are you going to do this again? And we're like, yeah, let's do this.
You guys don't give
now,
up. Now,
granted, we got the scars. We got some wisdom that goes with that. Okay.
Right.
And so with Olivia, we said, okay, we had a list of the questions to ask. Okay, where's mom? Where's dad? What's going on? What's the situation? What's the history? Blah, blah, right? You just...
So at this point, you're a professional.
Oh, dude, we could coach people on.
At this point, you're a professional adopter. I think you guys should put a podcast together for those who are going through the adoption process. Because I think there's so much out there that people don't know. One thing is what the agencies or government agencies says you have to do.
Yep.
But I'm sure that you guys that have been through the process, that have been hurt through the process, that have suffered through it, that lived the grieved, you guys can bring a lot of value to those who are in the process or are trying to figure out if that is an option for them
Right.
to raise a family? So
No, it's
just
good.
think about it.
Yeah, I mean, one thing, if there's anybody listening, right, that is even thinking or in that situation, there's two things I want to say. One is it's kind of this symbiotic relationship. The social services department needs adoptive families.
Oh, say that again.
Okay. They need you as an adopted, but when you go there, you feel like you're the one who needs something.
Oh,
And they almost treat you like, okay, you're just a number.
I see.
And you truly are a valuable, essential part of that quote unquote industry, right?
Yeah.
They can't care for these kids without
Of course.
families that take them in.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Yeah.
Which means inherently you bring value, which
Right.
means your value proposition is, hey, I'm going to provide a stable, loving household for this child to grow and thrive in. Okay. As such, you have some rights to say, and we're going to take this a little bit slow and ask a bunch of questions, and we're going to truly understand what our personal risk tolerance is with every adoption. And so these are things we didn't know because particularly with the first adoption, you're like, I just want a baby, right? And I'm willing to do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
By the time number 3 came along, it's like, okay, no, guess what? We're going to have a little more conversations at a time. So with a third, we said, okay, what's the situation? What's the risk? Blah, blah, blah. Okay, go through all that. We ended up saying, okay, so biological dad was already caring for a 1-year-old. And then the biological mother had like 6 kids that she didn't have custody of any of them. Okay, so she was kind of out of the picture. But dad was like, maybe there's a potential there, right? So we said, why don't we, instead of us bringing our daughter Olivia home right away, she was in with a foster mom for about 2 months, just to get through the first couple court hearings to find out what's going on.
Oh, wow.
Before we brought her into our house because of where Hallie and Alex were. Like I couldn't put my 2 adopted kids
Through that
at
pain
risk
again.
for more loss.
So at that point, did you already had a connection with Olivia?
So we got to meet her.
Okay.
And we're like, okay, so what's the situation? What's going on? Then we got to see her a couple different times. And then ultimately, after 2 months, we brought her home. And she stayed with us from that point forward.
Wow.
Right. So, and again, God bless that lady who was this mom. And she literally has like tattoos of like balloons with all the babies she cared for in this time frame.
Wow.
Yeah. So a really cool lady, just willing to give life to these, care for these newborns during that time frame. So, yeah. So Olivia, once she came home after, 2 months, about 6 months after that, we were able to legally adopt her, and she's kind of our last. And she rules our house now. By the way, she kind of tells me what I need to be doing. So
Yeah, for
at
sure.
13, man, it's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. She's 13 anyways.
Yep.
That's an amazing story. And I think, I'm sure that many will be encouraged by it to hear that side of the adoption process that many of us have no idea. We know what we know because, couples like you and Julie have shared your stories with us. But reality is that many people have no idea, even if they are going through the process or trying to start the process. There's so much. There's so many unknowns there. But we're about pretty much the end of this episode on time. But I want to hear a bit more about this situation. What have you learned through this, right? As a man, as an adopted dad in this journey. 3 kids now, 3 children. They're pretty much all young men, young ladies. But what have you learned in the journey, and what is missing for you to learn? Because I don't think we're never going to ever get there and say, okay, I made it. I got it. I'm solid now. Our oldest is going to be 22 next month. I'm saying next month because we're in November. But I don't even see ourselves saying we made it yet. I can say that we've been through it. We already know what it is to raise teenagers. We know what it is to keep raising a 21, 22-year-old because we're still raising him. I can say what it is to raise, to be in the raising process of raising two young girls. That's about it. But I don't think I can ever say I made it until at least I meet my maker. But yeah, tell me more about your state of mind as a man. What have you learned through it? And if you have to do it all over again, what is one thing that you will change?
That's a hard question.
It is.
And I may not answer it.
That's fine.
Because the reason I say that is it's completely imperfect, and it's perfect, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it kind of is what it is.
Yeah.
Do I wish I would, well, maybe this is my answer, is spend more time connecting as they're younger, right?
Okay.
Because I think there's a limited window of time where you truly make that connection. And, we still do make the effort to every night have dinner together, have a conversation, what was good, what was bad, all those kind of things, right? But sometimes, getting caught up in work and doing the busyness of life, that sometimes just not being earlier in their lives, taking that time to say, okay, let me just take the day off. Let's go hang out. Let's go spend some time together doing some fun things, or just, being there. So maybe that's what I would regret. Some of that is just that time spent, that connection. At the same time, we've done a lot of those great things where I don't feel like I've spent inordinate amounts of time away from family, away from my kiddos, because now as they're older, I become more of that coach, right? Mm-hmm. More the kind of the teacher, mm-hmm. The confidant and things, right? Mm-hmm. And it's because I have that relationship with my kids.
Right.
And one of the things that has always been, we instilled to them, number one, we told them very early, like, you're adopted. It's not a surprise. You're not going to wake up at 14 and be like, what? You're not my parents? Right? And freak out, because it's like,
did that started very early?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Because we had talked to people who they found out late in life that they were adopted, that they weren't their biological kid. And all of a sudden they went 180 from the parents, because they felt like, oh my God, I can't even trust these people that couldn't tell me the truth about who I am.
So it is like the movies.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Because we've known people that this is, I'm like, oh my God. And so very early, we're like, no, you're adopted. But you know what? So are we into God's family.
Amen.
And these kids, even though they don't have my DNA, they have, sadly, my sense of humor, some cases, my sarcasm, my, overconfidence, whatever, mm-hmm. those kind of things, mm-hmm. Because they pick up on all your habits, good, bad, and different, right? They are your kiddos. You are
the environment that you grow into.
Absolutely.
Period.
And they're amazing, right?
Yeah.
And it's just so much fun to see that as they've grown into their own skin and kind of understand who they are in God's family, and leading them to Christ. And for me, baptizing all three of my kiddos, right? Going to church, and, that one Sunday morning when they all gave their life to Christ, like I got to be part of that in their lives.
Yeah.
And for me, that's the kingdom, right? Building the kingdom through my own kiddos.
That's your legacy, man.
That is the legacy. And then for them ultimately to find their families, right? In that journey for them, like Hallie, for sure. She's like, I want to have my own kids and I want to adopt.
There you go.
Of course,
wow.
Right? Yeah, because she's like,
wow.
Yeah,
that's her passion. So beautiful. That is so beautiful. What about the other two? What about Alex and Olivia? Have they mentioned anything like that? Like, well, I want to have kids and I also want to adopt.
Yeah.
Like, have they mentioned anything like that, or just Hallie has said
Hallie.
something like that?
It's really interesting, Ralph, because so Alex, hey, do you want to know anything about your biological mom? Nope. Mm-hmm. Do you want to meet her? Nope.
Okay.
Nothing. Olivia, same thing. Do you want to know anything about?
So is that a possibility? Like, for those who are adopted, that is that something that is, how do I say this? Is this something that you have to do because you adopted them, or this is just something that you're trying to do just to make sure that they're whole as a person?
You can have open...
As a possibility.
Yeah, as you can have something called open adoptions, where you actually have contact with the biological families.
Okay.
So you can do that. Through foster care, it's typically not a good, healthy situation because of
where they're
drug
coming
addiction
from.
and abuse and things like that, neglect.
Okay.
But, so for Hallie, because we don't know anything about her biological family at all, because she was relinquished under the safe haven law,
Right.
we don't know. So
Right.
for her, we ended up doing, was that 23andMe?
Yeah.
Just to understand the DNA.
Yeah.
So we're like, oh, cool. Like you got a little Native American, a little
Okay.
Filipino, like all that kind
Okay.
of stuff. It's just data, right? It
Right.
doesn't change who
Yeah, it
she
doesn't.
is.
Right, of course not.
It's just information. Now, down the road, can she use that to find a sibling or somebody else in her family? Yes.
Likely.
Right.
Right. Okay.
So as technology and as more people get into that database, right? So there could be an on-ramp for her. With the other two, we actually do know some things about the biological family. Like, hey, if you're curious, like we're happy to tell you. But it's really up to them. Like this isn't something we're going to force on them, but they will, if they're interested, we're happy to share.
How do you know anything about their biological family? Do you research it?
We met them. Yeah, because through when we were doing the kind of visitations and things like that, we actually got a chance to see them.
Oh, okay.
Right. And so it wasn't like we're hanging out barbecuing.
Okay.
But we know kind of who they are, birth certificates, things like that. So you kind of know what their names were at birth, and then we were changing the name after we adopted them.
But with Hallie, you didn't have birth certificate for her. So now her birth certificate actually is you and Julie.
Right.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's cool. She's awesome.
That's amazing. What is one thing that you could say, if there's any one advice, and you don't have to expand much on it, but if there's one advice that you could give to those who are considering adopting or in the process of adoption, if anyone out there is listening to this episode, what will be one thing that you will say to them, that you will say to that man that is going through that process?
Probably I'd say, most importantly, undeniably, love and care on your wife. Period.
Yeah.
Without that relationship,
Right.
nothing else matters.
Yes, sir.
With divorce rates over 50, 60, 70%, whatever it is,
Yeah.
you want to destroy a family, that's where it begins, is the marriage.
Right.
So regardless of the adoption, regardless of the trials, the tribulations, whatever you go through, you've got to work on that marriage, period.
Okay, John, so you wrote a book. Not you, but your wife, Julie, wrote a book. How about you tell us a little bit about it and where people can find this resource? And I think it could be very beneficial for those who are listening to this episode today.
Yeah, hey, appreciate that, Rafael. So, yeah, like I kind of mentioned earlier, we've been through a lot, particularly through all three adoption processes and the three, failed ones as well. And, one of the things that that really helped, honestly, Julie and I kind of just process going through everything we did. She ended up writing a book that is called Fire Station Baby. And it's actually the journey of us adopting Hallie. And, we were talking earlier about just the process of adopting through foster care and the challenges, the ups and downs, emotional, this, that, and the other. So Julie's able to capture that in this book, Fire Station Baby. And, kind of some of the backstory too. Her mom always told her, hey, you got to write a book. You got to write a book about this story. And it wasn't until after Julie's mom passed away that she really felt this burden to I got to put this together. And, neither of us were authors, obviously. And she was just compelled to do that. Found a great coach here locally that helped her through that whole process to get this book written and published. But it can be found on Amazon.com, Fire Station Baby. She actually used her maiden name on this one, Julie Levada. So you can find that. But it's Fire Station Baby, Where Faith Became a Family. And it was a passion project of hers. I added a little bit here and there, but
Ghostwriter. Were you a ghostwriter, or this was just all her?
I would offer suggestions, and she would correct them and put them into the book. You know the feeling. So anyway.
Can you spell her maiden name for the book for those who are listening?
No, Julie Levada. It's Lavata.
Okay.
Fire Station Baby.
And they can find it in Amazon?
Yep, on Amazon.com.
All right. Is there a website? If anybody want to get in contact with you guys, if for those who are listening, if this is some sort of, if this brings value for them, is there any way to connect with you guys?
Sure. Yeah, there's actually a couple places. So there is a website, www.firestationbaby.com.
Okay.
So there's that. I also wrote a book. We won't talk about that today, but that's you can find me on johndburke.com. So both those two places, you can find us pretty easily.
Perfect. Well, thanks again for joining this episode, John, and we hope to have you back in the studio soon.
Hey, appreciate it, Rafael.
Thanks again, sir. It's an honor. Hey friends, thank you so much for listening to the podcast. And if this content is helpful to you, would you consider rating this episode and subscribe to the podcast? This episode was sponsored by Cyricom Tech, your virtual IT department. Cyricom Tech provides cybersecurity services, cloud services, IT support, infrastructure build, phone systems integrations, and much more. With more than 25 years of experience in the enterprise, Cyricom Tech is here to serve you. You can book a free consultation by calling 720-819-7388. Also on the web at cyricomtech.com. That is SIRECOM tech.com. Until the next episode, God bless you.